What's going on? I thought I'd make a long form video here. Let's see how many people come check it out. But the first thing that came to mind was looking at JJK, right? 258, we got to see UiUi's ability in action and talking about how people are able to swap souls and how that might work, right? And I was thinking during this break, who are some of the people who ought to swap with each other for that to at least show the best abilities they can have in the fight, right? We know Yuji switched to Kusakabe, but who are the two people each person swap with? And I have it for each character so far that we've seen get into the mix. Starting off with Kusakabe, right? I'm gonna just gun it out here. I'll figure out how to edit later, or maybe I won't even edit this joint. Starting with Kusakabe, right? The two people I believe he swapped with, an explanation as to why and his benefits from it and the benefits he gives to the person. Yuji, as we saw, Yuji he gets to learn, simple domain, reverse curse technique. Well, actually, he doesn't have that. Maybe he did. Simple domain, mainly, how to be able to use that properly. But then also, I think he also switched to Yuji for him to get used to getting into the mix, to fight better. We saw when he fought Sukuna, when he dropped the sword and went straight hands. Hey, yo. I think that was something that he learned also. He probably knows how to fight already, but getting used to fighting in Yuji's body and the stuff that Yuji would do, we saw a little bit of that kick that he did. The second person I believe he swapped with is Higuruma, which makes sense, right? Because in that battle with Higuruma and Yuji versus Sukuna, they both pretty much use simple domain and reverse curse technique at the same time. It would make sense that if they both switch to Kusakabe, that helped with that, right? Where Higuruma would have gotten better with his sword skills, right, from switching with Kusakabe, but then also simple domain and using the sword at the same time, which we saw when Kusakabe fought Sukuna, where he basically made a blade with simple domain when his sword was already broken. That's kind of similar to what the executioner blade is like. I guess using that with simple domain, so it makes sense that they're swapped together in that battle, right? So those are the two people I think Kusakabe switched with, and the benefits of learning using their techniques, applying it to a simple domain and his fighting ability, and for Yuji and Higuruma, applying simple domain to their fighting style, right? That's Kusakabe. Now we can switch to Yuji. We already know Kusakabe, simple domain, but I also think he switched with Choso, right? Choso giving him the opportunity to practice with his, with blood, piercing blood and all that other stuff. Something that he's very useful at, but it also makes sense why Naruto, the bro for Kamo Clan, whose name slipped in my mind, I could write the name on like a thing on the with an asterisk or whatever, had to have bro come in to help show him how to actually use his piercing blood and use his blood techniques, which makes sense why he says, Choso's a bad teacher, but being able to swap bodies in Choso's body and then practicing with dude as he's teaching him and explaining how to use blood technique, curse blood technique, it would make sense why that would be the case. It would also make sense why this is he would switch with Choso, just the versatility he has with it, right? And then Choso can benefit just fighting in Yuji's body, but and then also being able to get the body used to flowing the blood, and so it makes sense after, you know, Maki starts fighting Sukuna, where Choso's explaining to him, remember, flow the blood through every part of your body that heals everything, not just certain parts. It would make sense if they switched together, right? And he had someone else come in showing even more detail. So that's how I think with Yuji, two people Yuji swap with. Now, let's go back to Higuruma, right? And people were saying, that they believe Gojo would have swapped with Yuji or something. No, actually, we'll put Higuruma on a pause. Gojo, right? Who would he swap with that would make the most sense to be beneficial? Obviously, the two people where when he goes, this comes down to them. Yuta and Hikari. It would make sense to swap with them. He's fighting and training with them to get them prepared. But it also makes sense for the fact that if he switched with Yuta, for you to get used to the six eyes. I made a separate video before already explaining that Yuta would get the six eyes coming back to the battle. That's the only way he can come back into the battle and be on par with Sukuna now. Is where he has the six eyes, because it was already set up by Sukuna being worried about, does he have a hollow purple with him? And when they were fighting each other already, so it makes sense that he would come back with it, right? Yuta getting practice in Gojo's body with the six eyes, so when he gets it planted in his own eyes, in his own eye sockets, in his body with his curse energy already at max, and plus with his curse technique, I would actually level him up to a playing field, which would be useful. and effective, which I think would be good. Now, I don't think you'll get infinity, but being able to practice that would be great. And then Hikari being able to just get used to uh, the battle. I haven't sat down and processed yet what he would benefit from it. Maybe just oh, constantly running his domain expansion at every second, or running his luck every second, uh, the same way Gojo would use the six eyes. I don't know, right? But again, they train together, so that's what I would assume the two of them. But the second person I think that Yuta switched with was Higuruma. I think that why? For one reason. Well, actually a few reasons, right? He was switched with them one because Higuruma needs time to practice and get better. His ability is something that can one shot, Sukuna, but he needs to set things up properly with his domain expansion, which we saw in the battle after Higuruma and Yuta showed up. Both of their domain expansions and the abilities from that weren't things they were relying on. If it were to end with them and not keep going, their domain expansion abilities is what they're looking for. The Executioner's Blade, Yuta with his True Love domain expansion, and using the abilities there, right? So I think they would switch together. One, to get used to being able to use the domain expansion abilities and everything, and fighting in that, which it would give even Higuruma more opportunities to practice with the sword. Because again, fighting against, low levels compared to practicing in a body that's used to using a sword, like Kisakabe and Yuta, and using abilities is beneficial. It would get him used to using stuff like that. For Yuta, just being able to maintain his ability in fighting alongside somebody, I don't know. Just looking at the chapters in their fights, it would just make sense how it goes together. But the reason why that also came to mind is when I thought, well, what about Takaba? And that's when I thought Hikari and Takaba would switch. It would make sense when you look at when Takaba got in the mix. I guess the first thing that came to mind was that little that flying Mortal Kombat kick they both do, the one that Hikari did at Urame and the one Takaba did against Kenjaku's Spirit. It would make sense for them to switch. One, because both of their abilities make them pretty much OP once they get it working in tandem with each other. So Akari's jackpot, constantly in operation of as he's just fighting, it would be useful for Takaba to switch with him, so that way, as he's just fighting, his abilities is operating and moving, and it just gives him benefits at every point where he needs it, you know. And just getting used to it being something, because Takaba doesn't understand how his ability works, how beneficial it is to work with somebody where they don't worry about how it works fully, even though they know how it works, but something that goes off of instinct and just letting it. Hikari being a gambler, letting that just operate. Same with Takaba being a comedian, letting that just operate. Now, don't worry about the specifics, just let it operate in your body and be the natural you. And Takaba getting an opportunity to learn how to fight the way Hikari does. And then just maybe Hikari giving an opportunity to just think how his ability might work through Takaba's ability. So that's kind of what I thought of for those two. And that's why I thought, well, if Takaba and Hikari were to switch, why not Yuta and Higuruma and the benefits from that, which would make sense. Now, when it comes down to some other people, I still got to think that might be a separate video on its own, right? Like Ino, who would he switch with for a benefit? I don't know yet. But what do you guys think? You think I'm on the right track with it, or I'm kind of off? But to me, it just makes sense that these people switch with who they switch with. Just get that opportunity to practice and train and be ready. So I have a separate little short video talking about how certain characters can get back into the mix through UiUi's ability, right? Like, hint, hint, someone we haven't seen in a while. But let me know what you think, man. And if it's 3 people that see this, then comment something. At least let me see that you saw this. Am I cooking? Let me know.